Hey guys, it's me, the Ziad Guy from the Ziad Guides, and today we have the Annie patch note changes. She got a lot of changes, so without further ado, let's just get started. But before we go on, there was actually one change in the previous video I forgot to mention that I want to bring up now. Negative undizzy values are now shown on the drama gauge in a blue color to better illustrate the mechanic. Previously, this was a mechanic in the game, however it wasn't shown visually to the player, and I know a lot of people are really happy about this change, so I figured I'd bring it up now before we got into the Annie stuff. Increased Annie's hurtbox size during air hit stun to make her easier to combo. In the last patch, Annie had a tendency to fall out of combos very often, especially optimal combos that required strict timing. This is actually a pretty big nerf because players will now have access to higher damage combos on Annie without the fear of her dropping out and mashing. Here are the crescent cut changes. Crescent cut will now vanish if Annie is hit while the projectile is appearing. The light version is now -1 on block from 0. The medium version is now +2 on block from +4. And the heavy version now starts up 4 frames slower. This is a slight nerf to Annie pressure and a sizable one for her neutral. M Crescent is her main pressure reset tool, and while it's still plus, it won't be as oppressive as it was before, and the gap between M Crescent and a jab is now big enough for some characters to punish without the need to push block or even use an invincible reversal. The big nerfs to me are the H Crescent startup and the Crescent disappearing. Before, you could throw out an H Crescent on block, and if the opponent tried to interrupt with a normal, it would often trade in Annie's favor. Now, Annie just loses, and the 4 extra frames of recovery make it harder for her to use in neutral. This is pretty big considering this is her main full-screen neutral tool that doesn't rely on meter. Reworked Annie's Star Power Blockbuster. This is the long-awaited install rework. There's a lot to cover with this install rework, so I'm going to go over all the changes first and talk about the implications after the fact. Now costs and consumes 3 bars of Blockbuster meter. Star Power no longer drains the meter over time, it now drains on a timer much like Painwheel's Hatred install. The thickness of the outlines around Annie indicates how much remaining time is left on the Star Power. Annie can perform all blockbusters during Star Power now. Using the H version of some special moves will perform an enhanced version while removing a chunk of remaining Star Power time. H Crescent will now hit up to 3 times and not vanish when Annie is hit during the startup, just like the previous patch. Her dive kicks perform a kick that is an overhead, starts faster, and has a second hit upon landing. Heavy Knuckle performs a wall bounce instead of a wall slam. Destruction Pillar can be used in midair. Stars can now only be summoned on heavy normals. To summon a star, you must hold the heavy button down until it appears. Summoning stars removes a chunk of remaining time from Star Power. The properties of some stars have been changed. Crouch Heavy Kick is now always a red bounce during Star Power and will never shoot out stars. Added a new move during Star Power called Star Cancel. Annie can press Light Punch, Light Kick, or all 3 punch or kick buttons to cancel whatever attack she is doing and instantly return to idle. This can be done once per Star Power activation. Star Power has less recovery when used as a DHC. Gravity Collapse, the down-down kick input, no longer costs meter to use while Annie is the point character. Like I said before, this is a complete overhaul of the install that plays completely different from the previous install. Not only are combo routes different, but the mix-ups have changed as well. The Star Cancel is similar to a Guilty Gear Roman cancel and gives new conversions. pressure sequences, mix-ups, defensive options, and neutral tools. Since the timer isn't attached to meter and only applies when Annie is out, you have a lot of flexibility and options compared to the previous install. In the previous patch, Annie's install was an extremely strong and belligerent move that enabled highway robbery so devious it would make Lupin III cry in Japanese. The stars made her already disjointed buttons even harder to contest, and the damage she did off of errant hits was absurd. There's a lot of other stuff that was busted about the old install, and as an Annie main myself, I thought the only way they could fix it was either by making it a level 5 or changing it altogether, and Hidden Variable decided to go with the latter. In their own words, rather than playing like Phoenix from Marvel 3, she plays like Soul Bad Guy from Guilty Gear and Smash Bros. Fame. This install had a lot of changes, and only time will tell how truly strong it is, but I think it has a lot of potential and room for growth. If I had any complaint about this new install, I would say that I wish it had a little more opportunities for star cancel. I understand why they would start by only giving it one, given Annie's balance history and how strong a cancel like this can be, but it would be pretty cool to be able to cancel an extra time by either trading meter, or the timer on the install, something like that, or just giving her like one extra in total. Up next, it's time to talk about Annie's Photobop Super, which is now a level 5. The input has been changed to left, right, down, up, and 2 punches, and can be performed without being in star power. Deals more damage than before. An extra hit has been added to the camera flash. This was Annie's old super, specifically in install, and after the initial nerf making it require 3 bars in install, it rarely got seen outside of, some for fun stylish plays. It pretty much fills the same role as before, but it's unique in the fact that it's a comboable level 5 that doesn't use up OTG. This input can be fairly difficult to get, as it can overlap with both her level 1 and her level 3 fairly easily. However, it seems like the leniency is higher when done out of her forward medium punch. This is definitely a buff, but a minor one at that, as it's only really useful when you get the hit on the final character and you have 5 bars to burn. But this will almost certainly kill, and I'm sure there's a TOD with it. Increase the vulnerability hurt box on Crouching Light Punch. This is a nerf to Annie's main anti-air and should make it easier to punish when Annie misuses it. This button is still really good, and she has other good anti-air options as well, so this shouldn't impact her too harshly. Increase the recovery on whiff by 7 frames for Annie's sweep. I'm not sure why this change was made. Annie's sweep isn't a very commonly used move outside of punishing armor. I guess they felt the change was warranted since the sweep now causes a red bounce in install. But you can still special cancel it on whiff, so the utility of using it as a way to low profile certain projectiles is still intact. Her jump medium punch now has a reduced hit stun against airborne targets by about 2 frames. This is a nerf to one of Annie's most important buttons for combos. The hit stun on it makes it ideal for certain combo routes. So far, I can't find anything that it affects, but if any Annie player out there knows what changed, let me know in the comments. When Destruction Pillar is blocked, Annie's forward momentum is reduced to ensure that she lands in front of the opponent more often. Reduced hitbox region after Annie has been airborne for a short while. These nerfs are primarily to attack Annie's DP assist. Previously, there would be many times where the assist would land too far away and the opponent would be unable to punish it. This was especially annoying in the corner where you would expect to get a happy birthday for blocking a DP assist, but only catch the point character. This hitbox change makes it slightly worse as an anti-air, but since the change is at the bottom of the hitbox and the beginning active frames are the same, it still functions extremely well. Up next are some nerfs to her damage. Heavy Destruction Pillar went from 1100 to 1000. Crouching Heavy Punch went from 1200 to 1000. Stand Forward Heavy Punch went from 1300 to 1200. And Meteor Strike, or Bionic Arm, now scales damage to 50% afterwards, down from 70%. These nerfs were to buttons used in almost all of her high damage confirms, including corner and DHC confirms. While this does hurt her overall damage potential and her DHC damage from level 1 especially, it ultimately doesn't hurt her average damage too much, and she is still in the higher damage portion of the cast. Personally, I thought her damage was fine since she's meant to be a low throw mid-range character that struggles against zoning pretty heavily, but has great damage and on-hit mix-up to compensate for it. If they had hit her average damage as opposed to her DHC and optimal damage punishes, I think it would be more of an issue for her, but as it stands right now, I think it's mostly fine and can still enable 2 touches in certain scenarios. If Annie uses all 3 of her dive kicks in a combo and is airborne when the combo resets, her next dive kick will be the first one, instead of the worst version that prevents combos. This is a welcome quality of life change to her dive kicks. I never personally ran into this one, but I mean, it's good to have anyways. Overall, I would say that Annie is nerfed, but not nearly enough to be unviable or even move her down too far on the tier list. I think the biggest nerfs she got were the fireball neutral and the DHC damage, but it still remains to be seen how strong the new install really is. Even the changes to the system were pretty big nerfs considering she was possibly the single best character at solo max undizzy looping. Personally, I didn't really think her damage needed to be nerfed outside of DHC, and I don't know why they nerfed the fireball. It disappearing if Annie gets hit, that's fine, but why did they take away the +4 fireball and then give it to double? And I really think the 4 frames of recovery on H Crescent feels a bit unnecessary.